The camera was recording. When Marcus reviewed last night's footage, his throat went tight. Their pit bull was in the baby's crib at 3 a.m., just lying there beside their 4-month-old. But it wasn't until that night, when he and Rachel stood in the dark nursery and watched Duke do it again in real time, that Marcus understood and broke down. Before we reveal what happened, if you, like me, love dogs and babies, subscribe to see cameras capturing emotional moments like this one. Marcus and Rachel Bennett were careful people. Their home in suburban Denver, Colorado, ran on preparation and planning. Marcus worked as an aerospace engineer, Rachel as a labor and delivery nurse. When their daughter Olivia was born 4 months ago, they'd done everything by the book. They'd installed a video baby monitor with night vision and cloud recording weeks before her due date. And they had Duke, their 4-year-old blue-nosed pit bull they'd rescued 3 years ago. Duke had been surrendered when his previous family's apartment banned certain breeds. No aggression, no issues. Just a calm, gentle dog who'd been failed by discrimination. He'd settled into their home like he'd always belonged there. During Rachel's pregnancy, they'd introduced Duke to baby items gradually. When they brought Olivia home 4 months ago, Duke had been perfect. He'd sniffed her carefully, then walked to the nursery and lay down on the soft rug beside her crib. That became his spot. Every night for 4 months. Duke slept on that rug about 3 feet from Olivia's crib, like he'd assigned himself guardian duty. Marcus and Rachel loved it. They'd pull up the baby monitor sometimes, and their Duke would be peaceful in the corner of frame. They'd shared photos with friends. Duke had never tried to get into the crib. He just stayed on his rug, watching from a respectful distance. Then, about a week ago, something changed. Marcus was checking the monitor around 2 a.m. when he saw Duke do something he'd never done before. Duke walked to the crib, stood on his hind legs, and jumped in carefully, controlled. He curled up at the far end, away from Olivia, just watching her. Marcus woke Rachel. They watched on the phone screen. Duke stayed for maybe a minute, then moved closer and gently nudged Olivia with his nose. Once, twice, 3 times. Olivia stirred, shifted position. Duke waited, then carefully climbed out and returned to his rug. "That was weird," Rachel whispered. But Olivia was fine. Duke was gentle. They went back to sleep. It happened again the next night, and the night after. By the 4th night, Marcus saw Duke getting into the crib multiple times per night. Same pattern every time. Get in, watch, nudge Olivia until she moved. Get out, wait an hour, do it again. "What is he doing?" Rachel asked. Marcus shook his head. "Maybe he's being protective?" It wasn't aggressive, but it was strange. Why now? For 4 months he'd been content on that rug. By the end of the week, Marcus was concerned. Duke was waking Olivia multiple times a night. She'd cry. They'd have to settle her. She'd been sleeping through the night before this started. Now they were up 3 or 4 times. Rachel was exhausted. Marcus was dragging at work. Olivia seemed fine during the day, though she'd been sleeping a bit more than usual lately. Marcus had mentioned it at her last checkup, but the pediatrician said some babies just sleep more. "What's going on with him?" Marcus asked Rachel one morning. She shrugged, exhausted. "Maybe something's bothering him? He's never acted like this before." That morning, after Rachel left for a 12-hour shift, Marcus made a decision. He'd checked the monitor live dozens of times this week, but he'd never sat down and watched full recordings. Maybe reviewing footage would show something he'd missed. He was going to watch the entire previous night's recording, all 8 hours, to understand what Duke was doing and why. He made coffee, opened his laptop, pulled. up the cloud recording from their baby monitor, and started watching. He set it at regular speed. This was going to take a while. The recording started at 10:30 p.m. For the first 3 hours, nothing happened. Duke stayed on his rug, occasionally shifting position, but his eyes kept returning to the crib. Marcus fast-forwarded through this part. At 1:42 a.m., Duke's behavior changed. His head lifted, ears forward. He stared at the crib with sudden, intense focus. Marcus slowed too. Normal speed. Duke stood up, completely still, staring at Olivia. 30 seconds passed. Then Duke moved, walked to the crib, jumped in carefully, and immediately moved close to Olivia. He nudged her with his nose. 1, 2, 3 times. Firm but gentle. Olivia's body jerked. She made a small sound. Her arms moved. Duke backed off, watching, then climbed out and returned to his rug. Marcus rewound it, watched again. There was something about Duke's stillness before he moved, that laser focus. Like he was waiting for something specific. At 2:18 a.m., it happened again. Duke stood suddenly, stared, stayed frozen for 30 seconds, then intervened. This time, Marcus watched Olivia more carefully instead of Duke. Before Duke acted, she'd been completely still, not moving at all. After the nudging, she jerked awake, moved, then settled back. It happened a third time at 3:09. Same pattern. Duke waiting, watching, then acting with precision. Marcus felt something cold forming in his stomach. He called Rachel at the hospital. "Hey, I'm watching last night's recording, the Duke thing. I think something's wrong." "What do you mean, wrong?" "I don't know yet," Marcus said, "but there's a pattern, something about the timing. Can you get home?" Rachel got home after 7 p.m., still in scrubs. Marcus showed her the footage, walked her through what he'd noticed, the stillness, the precise timing. When the third incident played, she grabbed his arm. "Marcus, look at the pattern. He looked Duke's behavior before acting. The way he waited exactly the same amount of time every single incident. The way Olivia jerked after each nudge like she was gasping." "Rewind it," Rachel whispered. They watched again. Duke stood motionless for 15 seconds, staring at Olivia, who lay completely still. Then, Duke immediately intervened. Olivia suddenly jerked. Every single time. Rachel's nursing instincts kicked in. "She's not moving before he acts," Rachel said slowly. And then she gasps. Awake after, like she looked at Marcus, her face going pale, like she's not breathing. "We need to watch her tonight, in person." Marcus nodded, his mouth dry. "We need to see this with our own eyes." That night, they didn't go to bed. At 10:30, after putting Olivia down like normal, they waited. They gave Duke his usual routine, let him settle on his rug. Then, quietly, they both went to the nursery and positioned themselves in the dark corner near the door. Far enough away that Duke wouldn't react to them. Close enough to see everything. Duke noticed them immediately. He lifted his head, looked at them, then seemed to accept their presence. He lay back down but kept his gaze moving between them and the crib. The room was dark except for the small nightlight plugged in near the changing table. Marcus checked his watch. 11 p.m. They waited. Time crawled. Olivia slept peacefully, her small form barely visible in the crib. Duke rested on his rug. Everything was quiet. Everything. At 1:38 a.m., Duke's head came up, fast. His ears went forward. He stared at the crib with that same intense focus Marcus had seen in the footage. Then Duke stood up, completely rigid, not taking his eyes off Olivia. Marcus moved slightly, trying to see Olivia better in the dim light. He could make out her tiny face, And then he realized what Duke was seeing. Olivia's chest wasn't moving at all. That steady rise and fall that should have been there, that tiny rhythm of infant breathing, had stopped. Marcus stopped breathing himself. He counted 10 seconds, 15, 20, and then Duke moved. He crossed to the crib quickly, jumped in with practiced ease, and immediately lowered his head to Olivia. He nudged her chest with his nose. Once, twice, 3 times, firm enough to move her. And suddenly Olivia's body jerked. Her chest expanded. She took a gasping breath, then another. Her breathing resumed. She whimpered slightly but didn't fully wake. Duke stayed there for another 10 seconds, watching her breathe, then carefully climbed back out and returned to his rug. Rachel's hand found Marcus's arm. Her grip was tight. "She's not breathing," Rachel whispered. "He's waking her up because she stops breathing." Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. They stayed in that corner watching, and it happened again at 2:13. Olivia's breathing just stopped. Duke noticed within seconds. Into the crib. Wake her up. Make sure she's breathing. Out. By the 3rd time at 2:46, Marcus was crying, silent tears running down his face in the darkness. His legs felt weak. He had to lean against the wall to stay standing. This dog, their Duke, had been doing this every single night. For a week. Maybe longer. Keeping their daughter alive while Marcus had been annoyed by the disruption, while they'd talked about shutting him out, while they'd had no idea their daughter was dying dozens of times each night. Rachel pulled out her phone. Even in the dark, Marcus could see her hands shaking as she pulled up the pediatrician's emergency line. She explained what they'd witnessed. The doctor on call took it seriously immediately. "Bring her to the air right now," the doctor said. "Don't wait until morning. This could be infant sleep apnea and it's dangerous. They need to run tests." Rachel hung up and looked at Marcus. "We have to go. Now." Marcus nodded. He walked over to Duke, crouched down beside him on that rug. Duke looked up at him with those steady amber eyes. "Good boy," Marcus whispered. His voice broke. "Good boy, Duke. You saved her." The hospital ran tests through what was left of the night. A pediatric pulmonologist was called in. They did a sleep study right there, monitoring Olivia's breathing, her oxygen levels, everything. The doctor came in around 6 a.m. with results. "Your daughter has infant sleep apnea," he said. "Central sleep apnea specifically. Her brain is intermittently failing to send the signal to breathe. She's having episodes lasting 15 to 20 seconds, multiple times per night. It's not common, but it happens. Usually in premature babies, but full-term infants can develop it too. If left untreated, prolonged episodes without intervention can cause brain damage or be fatal. Sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, is sometimes linked to undiagnosed apnea. How did you catch this? Most parents don't notice until it's too late." Marcus told him about Duke, about the footage, about watching it happen. The doctor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That dog saved your daughter's life, multiple times. If she'd gone through these episodes without something stimulating her to restart breathing, we'd be having a very different conversation right now." They admitted Olivia overnight for observation and fitted her with a medical-grade apnea monitor that would alarm if her breathing stopped. The doctor explained that many infants grew out of this condition within a few months, but they needed to monitor her carefully. They were sent home the next day with equipment, instructions, and a follow-up plan. That night, Marcus set up Olivia's new monitor according to the instructions. The small sensor pad went under her crib mattress. The base unit sat on the dresser, ready to alarm if it detected no movement for more than 20 seconds. Rachel put Olivia down in her crib, adjusted her sleep sack, kissed her forehead. Duke was already on his rug, waiting. He'd been different at the hospital. Anxious. Pacing. When they got home and Olivia was back in her nursery, he'd visibly relaxed. Marcus sat down on the floor next to Duke, put his hand on the dog's broad head. "For the past week," he said quietly, "you've been her monitor. You knew something was wrong before any of us did, before the doctors did. How did you know?" Duke's tail thumped once against the rug. Rachel came and sat beside them. She scratched Duke behind the ears. "He changed his whole routine for her," Rachel said softly. 4 months of sleeping peacefully on this rug, never once getting in that crib. Then suddenly he had to, because she needed him to. Marcus nodded. He thought about the times he'd been frustrated this week, the conversations about closing the door. If they'd prevented Duke from reaching Olivia, even for one night, those prolonged episodes without intervention, the doctor had said the risk was brain damage or worse. Duke had been the only thing standing between their daughter and that risk. 3 months. Later, Olivia's apnea resolved just like the doctor said it might. The monitor stopped detecting episodes. Her breathing stayed steady through the night. And Duke went back to sleeping peacefully on his rug. He didn't get in the crib anymore. Didn't need to. His job was done. But he still slept there every night, still kept watch, still opened one eye whenever Olivia made a sound. Marcus still had that footage saved. Sometimes, when work was stressful or life felt overwhelming, he'd pull it up. Watch Duke standing alert in the darkness. Watch him jumping into that crib. Watch him doing what needed to be done without praise, without recognition, without anyone even knowing. Just because it mattered. Just because love doesn't need acknowledgement to act. The video monitor still recorded every night. And now, when Marcus saw Duke on that rug, lying peaceful and calm, he understood what he was looking at. Not just a pet. Not just a companion. A guardian who'd proven that devotion doesn't need words, that sometimes the protectors we rely on most are the ones who never ask for anything in return. They just show up, they pay attention, and when it matters, when everything is on the line, they do what needs to be done. If this story changed how you see pit bulls, leave a comment about your experience with misunderstood dogs, and subscribe to Camera Caught Stories for more eye-opening stories. Share this with someone who needs to see the truth.